Do you remember 2017 storyline leading up to WrestleMania 33 between Triple H and Seth Rollins? Triple H cost Seth Rollins the Universal Championship. Seth Rollins was begging Triple H to fight him for the longest time. Triple H then cost him a spot in the Royal Rumble on an episode of Raw against Sami Zayn. And because of that, Seth Rollins came to NXT TakeOver and said, oh, the show's called TakeOver, right? Triple H got him out of the building. And that led up to a match between both of them, an unsanctioned match at WrestleMania 33. It was great, right? Now imagine Seth Rollins, instead of just going to NXT TakeOver, he went there with a gun. The 90s was something else. Everyone says, hey, we want the Attitude Era back. I don't think we're ever gonna get anything close to it ever again, because there was some crazy stuff that happened in the 90s. I mean, you can get away with a lot more stuff back then, you know what I mean? Things were more acceptable then than they are today, you know what I'm saying? The intent was a little bit different. And in today's world, you have to really kind of walk on thin ice between TV PG and TV 14, because you don't want to do something that offends people, but you want something that definitely pushes the envelope. The 90s just pushed the envelope all the time, especially on October 19th, 1998 is the episode of Raw after some pay-per-view. I don't even know what it was. Listen, okay, let's just get into it. This is the episode where Stone Cold Steve Austin puts the gun up to Vince McMahon's head. We've all seen this moment before. Yeah, we all know what happens in this moment. If you don't, I'm going to show you in this video anyway. But for those of you that have seen this, do you remember or do you know what happened in the episode to lead up to this point? Because it is the most wild thing I think I've ever seen in wrestling ever. I watched this episode for the first time ever last night, and I'm going to tell you bit by bit everything from this story leading up to this moment. Strap in. The storyline leading into this episode of Raw is that Stone Cold Steve Austin has been fired by Vince McMahon. The Undertaker versus Kane was going on. I don't even know, was Austin the special guest referee? I didn't go back and check. I don't know. But he was supposed to count to 3, raise the victor's hand, supposed to be clean. Austin didn't do that. He beat the crap out of both of them, said the winner of this match is Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then just drank a bunch of beers. Classic. Vince fires Austin for doing that because he told him, he said, listen, if you don't call the winner down the line, you're going to be fired. So on this episode of Raw, of course, what would Vince McMahon do when Austin's out of the company? He throws a giant party. Raw opens up with a bunch of confetti and balloons. Everybody goes to the ring. Vince is on the stage to gloat about firing Stone Cold. There's a sign in the audience that says Raw is WAP. Do with that what you will. Vince is in a wheelchair here. I didn't go back and watch like what happened. He's just in a wheelchair. I'm assuming it's something Stone Cold Steve Austin related. I don't know, maybe he had polio or something. I don't know. Vince then rants for about 6 to 7 minutes just about how glad he is that Austin doesn't work for the company anymore. He at one point says firing Austin is better than sex.
It was better than sex. Whoa! That's good, JR! He's wicked.
Which is a very interesting line, because I've seen how much money Vince McMahon has paid for sex, and I don't think he's paid any money to fire Stone Cold Steve Austin. Anyway, this rant goes on for a long time. The promo is just nothing. He's got Pat Patterson, Sergeant Slaughter, which I think was the commissioner at the time, and Gerald Briscoe with him. And behind him on the Titantron, you see a live feed of Stone Cold Steve Austin, a paid cameraman for the company is showing on a live feed a man that does not work for the company, and he's polishing an assault rifle. He's just okay. We took it that far. I feel like Austin's put Vince through a lot. They both put each other through a lot. Don't know if anyone really has to die for this, but hey, you know, whatever. Wrestling. Why did the cameraman shoot him? I'm just talking in kayfabe sense. We're just having fun with it. It doesn't actually matter, but they have to film it some way. I don't know. So Vince freaks out. Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, and Sergeant Slaughter take Vince to his office. They wheel him into his office, protecting him, shielding him from the danger that Stone Cold Steve Austin represents. I mean, the man has a gun, and it's so weird because this episode is just going on like normal. Like, we have like matches and stuff, and there's an active shooter in the presence of the building. What is going on? So McMahon eventually gets police to the building. He says, hey, listen, I want you to go get Stone Cold Steve Austin. I want you to take him. And for some reason, instead of just doing what they were at the building for, they arrest Chyna. They arrest Chyna because Mark Henry has filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against her. Okay. They arrest China. And the best part about this is, it's not even like they couldn't find Stone Cold and arrested China just because, hey, we had to get her as well. No, they see Stone Cold in the parking lot and they're like, oh my God, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. And they go over and they talk to him and he shows them his gun.
Hey, so you got a sidearm. Good, check it out. Yeah. Nice toy. Not bad.
And he's like, wow, this is cool. He's like, can I get an autograph for my kid? And Austin's like, yeah. What? He's taking autographs for his child. Oh my goodness gracious. Yo, Vince is like, what? What is going on? We cut to commercial break. We come back. Vince has another police officer. He's got a guard dog with him. He said, listen, I want you to take that dog. I want you to find Stone Cold and I want you to get this dog to bite him. And the police officer goes, no, I'm not putting my life in danger.
I didn't come here to endanger my life. Screw you.
You're a cop. This is your job. What are you doing, bud? So Austin hasn't even like shot anybody up to this point. Pat Patterson is like, hey, you know what? I actually really want some coffee. I'm gonna go get some coffee. He's like, Vince, you want any coffee? And then Slaughter's like, oh man, I could go for some coffee right now as well. And Jared Briscoe's like, ooh, coffee. And they all leave, and that's it for the rest of the. You don't see them again. They just go get coffee for an hour and a half, and it's done. They leave Vince alone. There's a shooter in the building, and you left to go get coffee. You didn't even have the courtesy of bringing him with you. This is hilarious. There's a man in a wheelchair with somebody trying to shoot him, and you abandon him. It'd be your own brothers, to be honest with you. It's the most loyal ones that are the ones that break your heart in the end. It's crazy. So Vince is left alone in his office, and then there's a big knock at the door, and you go, hey, this is too obvious to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Not this early. Who is it? It's Mankind. Mankind comes in. It's actually a pretty sweet moment between him and Vince. Vince is like, I'm really happy to see you. I guess because you're not here with a gun trying to kill me.
I'm happy to see you.
Whatever. Mind you, the night gets even crazy. If you thought that everything I just said was crazy, strap yourself in. Because, first of all, Mankind is like, hey, you should rehire Stone Cold Steve Austin. Vince is like, are you nuts? You're a freak. Stop talking to me. And Mankind's like, we should play a game. And you cut to commercial, and it's Twister. He brings his life is in danger, and you put a Twister board on the ground. He's in a wheelchair. So Vince starts like throwing Twinkies at Mankind. He's like, get out. Boss is trying to kill me. I don't need this. He removed his only means of protection from the room. What are you doing? So then Vince gets a phone call. The phone rings, and Vince is like, oh no. And this is too obvious, obviously, to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. No, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin, who literally says, I'm going to kill you, in like the softest way possible, in the most nonchalant way possible. He goes, yeah, you're gonna die tonight.
Vince.
Yeah.
Your time's up, you sorry bastard.
Vince then calls the limo driver, tells him to meet him at the entrance. Vince then wheels for about like 2.5 minutes to this exit. And as soon as he's about to get in the limo, Austin just appears behind the limo like he's freaking Batman or something. He puts a bow and arrow on the limo. Where did you get that from? You were just holding an assault rifle. Why do you have so many weapons? He's a hunter, whatever. And he grabs Vince, beats him up a little bit, puts him in the wheelchair. Vince tries to escape. Austin's like, no, bud, and takes him back to his office. Where are the police? The rest of the night is spent having Austin pretty much tell Vince, you're going to die, I'm going to kill you. It gets kind of uncomfortable after a while. He literally grabs a knife and he's like, oh, like, you think this knife's big enough to kill an elephant? And he's like, oh, you thought I was gonna gut you with this, Vince? No, but when you do go, and you will go, bang, it'll be just like that. You're gonna go out so quick, you're not even gonna feel a thing.
And you can rest assured, when you go just like that. That's simple, man. It's that simple.
Whoa, this is kind of weird. I feel like the Stone Cold character, he is like a badass kind of guy, right? He's like just kind of somebody that beats people up. I feel like when you make him kind of a murderer, or pass him off as one, I don't know. I feel so weird about this episode. I don't know. So now we've upgraded from a knife to a bow and arrow. A bow and arrow is being shoved in his face. He's like, you know what I can do with this bow and arrow, Vince? The segment after this, by the way, is a woman deep-throating a sausage. What? And then... You can't convince me by that. No, I'm convinced that every writer of this show snorted a fat line before they went live on air, because you cannot... How do you come up with any of this stuff this episode at all? This is insane. This is my favorite part. Austin then tells Vince that he wants him to squeal like a pig. Squeal for me, Vince. You want to die? Huh? You better squeal for me then. And Vince is like, oink, oink, oink.
Oink. Oink.
And Austin's like, is that the best you can do? What? And Vince is like, oink, oink.
Oink! Louder! Oink! Oink! Oink!
I can't finish this video. I can't. The best part about this is that Vince doesn't start screaming for help until Austin like starts reading off plot synopsis from like other movies and stuff like that. He's like, hey, you ever seen the movie whatever, and this happened? Vince's like, help, help.
Did you see the movie, Mystery? Could it really...
Help!
Hold it.
Help!
Austin then tells Vince, hey, listen, you ever played You Bet Your Life? Ha ha ha. Well, Undertaker and Kane are about to have a match. You better pick the winner correctly, because if you do, we're going to do things the easy way, but if you don't, we're going to do things the hard way. And Vince picks Kane to win the match. The funniest thing about that is you didn't even have Undertaker win. No one won. It was a casket match that no one won. They broke the casket and then they left. What was the point of the whole, oh, you got to bet on who it is? So either way, the man who booked the show, by the way, made this. Not like it's a real situation where, you know, he just got unlucky. Austin's like, well, you lost because nobody won. Let's go. Takes him out to the arena and the crowd's going nuts. This is a man that has been duct taped, threatened, beat up. I mean, I understand it's Vince McMahon, but holy smokes. Austin calls Vince pathetic. He said, you're crying in front of the entire world. You're a pathetic man. You're about to murder him. This is like, what are we doing? This is WWE. This isn't freaking... Almost got taken off of YouTube for a second. This isn't Live Leak. That's a better one. Live Leak. There we go. Vince then puts a letter in Vince's coat, which is a letter of introduction, I think. I watched the next week's like intro. I think it was just a letter saying, hey, I'm back in the company. I don't know. He puts a letter in his jacket and he literally says, where you're going, the devil's going to be pretty mad when he sees this too, Vince. Austin then tells the cameraman who listened to him to put Vince's face on screen because he's about to have his eyes pop out of his head. And the camera people film him and put him on the Titantron. What are we doing as a company here? Vince is literally like, I'm about to die. Austin takes out a gun. Well, he goes, if you want Vince's eyes to pop out of his head, give me a hell yeah. And the crowd is these savages. They're like, hell yeah. What are we doing? Austin takes out a gun. He literally and at this point, the crowd's like silent. They're like, oh, like the crowd's like, they didn't pop for it at all. There was no like reaction to it. They reacted to everything else. When he takes the gun out, they kind of go. So Austin points the gun up. He says, ¿Cómo te llamas? No, he doesn't. I'm sorry. He like uses the microphone to like wedge like a something in the back of Vince McMahon's head. I don't know if he like tried to make him think it was the gun, but it means nothing because he immediately points the gun at Vince's head and shoots it. Bang, 316, the flag we've all seen before. And just to make matters worse, he gets up and Vince pees himself. I don't know how you fake this, by the way, unless Vince actually peed himself, in which fair play, that's amazing. But Austin picks him up and spins him around. The man just thought he was about to meet God. He was about to die. In kayfabe, obviously. The man thought he was going to die. And he pees himself, and you pick the man up and you're like, you're pathetic. Vince 316 says, I just pissed my pants.
McMahon 316 says, I just pissed my pants.
Give me a hell yeah. And then he stuns him twice. Going back and looking at this, it's pretty smart because Austin, there's a couple of teases to the fact that Austin actually was never going to kill Vince McMahon in the first place. Like the cop looks at the gun and says, nice toy.
Nice toy. Very nice. Not bad.
And you know, at the end, JR is literally like, it's a toy. Literally, it was a toy. that was kind of smart. I like that you can go back and look at that and you're like, oh, so he actually wasn't gonna like do anything ever. He also never says like to explicitly, I'm going to kill. He does a couple of times, and I think he might have slipped up on that. It might have just been improv, but he made a point for the most part to be like, oh, I'm not gonna like make you suffer. I'm not gonna put you through any physical pain or anything like that. And he didn't. He stunned him twice after he peed himself, so that's pretty traumatizing. This is something people go to therapy for. And Vince just came back out the next week and was like, oh, well, you guys all loved it, didn't you? Ah. I weirdly felt bad for Vince in this episode. I understand that he's done like a lot, kayfabe wise. We don't have to talk about real life stuff, but kayfabe, he's done a lot, especially to Stone Cold Steve Austin. But like, dude, like, this is crazy. The 90s were crazy. It was a different time. I loved recapping this just now, and I can't wait to edit this. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. I'm going to make one of these videos every single week because there's a lot of things in wrestling that haven't really been spoken about in detail to the extent that I'll speak about in detail and highlight how insane it is. So we'll see you next week. Give Dominic Mysterio a gun.